All right, all right. Well, look, we're about 3 minutes in, if you don't mind. We've got 12 participants on the line right now. We'll, pray that more, 13. We'll pray that more continue to join as we go in. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Let me first start by telling you that this summit is being recorded and will be available for viewing on YouTube at the KAPsi Tulsa Alumni Chapters channel on YouTube. I want to thank you all for joining the Brothers of Tulsa Alumni Chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity in our second of many of what we call Kappa Awareness Summits. We pray that you learn something new from the summit series that will help benefit you and enrich your lives in some way. This month's topic is financial awareness and literacy. My name is William Beckner, and I will serve as your moderator. I hope that everyone's had a great weekend thus far. I would like to take a minute to acknowledge our poll mark, Brother Kiwan Koba, for his leadership, as well as the other officers and members of the chapter for their governance and support of the chapter. Serving as your moderator, I will also serve as the timekeeper, and in that, my commitment to you is to not run over 1 hour in order to be respectful of your time. I ask that everyone on the line, please put your phones, your computers, however you're logging in here, please put them on mute and allow the speaker to complete his presentation. If anyone has any questions during the presentation, please open a new chat window and send me a direct message. I will make sure that we cover all questions in the Q&A session at the end. In the event that we do not get to cover your question because of time, please send your questions to KAPSI Tulsa Alumni at gmail.com and we will address it in a response. Our speaker for this afternoon is Mr. Sean Washington, Field Director at Northwestern Mutual. Brief background on Sean: having worked with Northwestern Mutual for the last 9 years, Sean is no stranger to dedication and hard work. His areas of expertise include, but aren't limited to, estate planning, retirement planning, and special needs planning, investments and brokerage accounts, life insurance, long-term care, disability, and educational planning, as well as overall wealth building and wealth accumulation. Sean is the president, as you can see from his shirt, the president and co-founder of Golf 316, a nonprofit faith-based organization founded right here in Frisco, Texas, building and maintaining relationships as well as teaching and playing golf are but a few of his passions. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you my brother, my good friend, Mr. Sean Washington.
Hey, I don't even know how to start after that, Will. I was thinking, like, who's this guy introducing right about now? But in all seriousness, guys, I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit of what I feel God has blessed me with, and as we all know, as men of achievement, our gifts and talents aren't made just for us. They're made to give, and so I'm excited just for the opportunity to share a little bit. Thank Will. Thank you, Brother Poe, for allowing for me to share a little bit. As Brother Will has stated, send the questions, but I just want you guys to know we don't get to all the questions. Feel free to go through the channel as Brother Will has asked, and then whatever I can ask, down the road, tomorrow, the days after, feel free to reach out from that perspective as well. And so, give you a quick backdrop of myself, man, and I share one thing up front, which I think is always the most important thing for me, is why do I do what I do? I do this because I believe in one word, and that word is legacy. So often in our community, especially our community, legacy is not something that we talk about a lot of. So in the next 20, 30 minutes while I'm sharing, everything that really from the foundation of this conversation is derived from that word. And for the last 20 years, I've been in this space. I've been at Northwestern Mutual the last 10, started as an advisor there. And now I actually run our Frisco, Texas office, and really responsible for growing that office and maintaining a level of growth, not just through client-based growth, but through growing that from an organizational standpoint as well, is what I'm chartered to do, which I enjoy doing. So basically, that's why I do what I do. The areas, guys, that I really work, and I consider myself, I won't say an expert, but that level of expertise that I take great pride in, it's really 3 areas. It's risk management, portfolio diversification, and I'll tell you what that is. The second thing is really, when we say wealth accumulation, it's really what is the most tax efficient way to save money and where. And how do I make sure I take as much risk off the table to still obtain the goals that I want, whether it's retirement, buying a second home, college funding. How do I strategically do this the most tax efficient way and to take as much risk as possible off the table, yet still to achieve whatever goal it is that I'm looking to achieve? The third thing that we do, me and my team, I think we do extremely well, is retirement strategies. I'm quite sure everybody has a 401k, IRA, annuity, but what we don't typically realize is that it's easy to grow money, but one of the most important things that most people don't teach you is how do I get those resources back to me now where it makes sense, where I'm not paying more than I should because I paid for more fees up front, or now I'm paying more taxes because my tax bracket has changed. So we have to be very, very intuitive, creative, and mindful as we're making retirement planning processes. Not just how much can I grow, but how much am I actually going to get back when I say pull the trigger, turn on the valve. It's time for me to get paid. And now we're like, oh my God, I didn't know I had that much tax to pay. So what I want to start with first is really, I believe, the foundation of legacy building. And that's built around, it's kind of like building a home. And I think about financial planning in this aspect to keep it as simple as possible for me. When I build a home, or when your home was built, or your friends, everything started with the foundation. And without a foundation, nothing stands. Now, you can have half a foundation, you can have a half strong house. But if I want everything to be solid, my foundation has to be solid. How do I ensure a solid foundation? There are typically three things we have to look at. One, we have to make sure that we're protected the right way from a life insurance perspective. Now, there's term and whole. We won't get into all the types, but there are questions you guys should really be wanting to ask about what type do I need now versus what I'll need 20 years from now. Because things we buy today, life is going to evolve and change. If we're not grandparents, we'll be grandparents. If we're not parents, we'll be parents. And how do I build a legacy in estate planning through a life insurance policy? Very, very important. Most of the wealthy people that you know, that's how they build estate planning. They don't build it through the money they earn through investments. That's what they live off and enjoy life for. They use life insurance to ensure that no matter what happens or when it happens, I'm going to have a tax-free windfall that should take care of everything I promised my family. And from a biblical perspective, as men, we're here to take care of our children's children. So that means we got to look beyond us, or beyond our kids, and we got to look one more tier down. That's where the legacy part comes in for me and my team when we plan. I plan three ways. I plan for you and your family here. Then I plan upward for grandparents that may end up staying with you or you taking care of. Or I know a lot of my clients, fortunately, and unfortunately, depending on the situation, end up having to take care of parents, or another loved one. And that cuts into your financial goals. And then we look one tier down, who are you responsible for? Your kids. So when I'm doing a plan, I'm thinking three things. Thinking about you and your family, your children, which is your legacy, and your parents or loved ones that you may be responsible for. So we look at a comprehensive planning strategy that takes care and build a foundation that's going to protect you in three areas: your life the right way, your income, because without income, there's not a lot that we can do. And then the third thing is really what we don't think about often, guys, is really a long-term care plan, a strategy that simply says, hey, if I get in a situation and I do unfortunately get dementia or get a serious ongoing health battle, what does my dollars look like in that stage of my life? And so often you see people have to do three things. If that ever happens, they have to sell a home or do something like that, a downsize. They have to liquidate a lot of their retirement assets because one spouse is now responsible for taking care of the other. Or somebody have to figure out how to go back to work to get some type of health coverage. And that ain't the best thing you want to be doing, around 55, 60 years old, is trying to find a gig. So if we think about this in totality, the only thing I'm saying today is, how do we build the right financial foundation? We'll get to the investments, the cryptos, and all the fun things that are out there. But nothing is able to stand unless we build a foundation. Protect your family, protect your money, and make sure at the end of the day, we're looking at how can we make sure we don't spend retirement dollars on health issues in the future. I'm going to make the assumption that most brothers are around, our age, right? Somewhere in that 35 to 55 age range. And if we start thinking about the reality of the dollars that we're bringing in today and where we're articulating those dollars, I'm encouraging you guys to invest today in protecting your health long term. And for anyone that has any health issues, that's from a DNA perspective or hereditary, please take it early. Please address that early with some type of long-term care need or plan in place, because I can assure you that will eradicate your resources quicker than anything. Healthcare, as we know, it's up and down, man. Prescriptions, surgeries, it's crazy now. So from a foundation standpoint, make sure you're protecting those three things. Make sure you have the right life plan in place, not through your employer and all that kind of stuff. Make sure we have something that's going to be around when you need it most, and that's later in life. And also making sure we're using that as a way to grow tax-free long-term resource dollars as well. Because most of you guys, maybe not, I'm assuming, may be in a certain tax bracket that you may not have a lot of tax incentives. So let's use life insurance a smart way to make sure that we're now not only protecting our lives, but we're growing this bucket of tax-free resources that will give us an opportunity to have some level of dollars in the future that are not taxed. And that will give us a little comfort if the market is going down with our retirement dollars. So that gives us a spinoff that we don't have to use all our 401k or investments or brokerage. We've created another bucket that gives us tax-free resources. So foundation really consists of these three things: protection the right way. And I'll be more than happy to share what that looks like in detail, because every situation is different. Making sure we protected our dollars the right way. If somebody's not working next week, next month, can you just live off the wifeys, or do you have enough saved, or all these things come into play? I use this and I think about it this way. If I'm driving down the road and I got a spare in my trunk and I have a flat, or I have AAA or roadside, I got some peace that if something happens, I have a remedy for the situation before it ever happens. So I got some peace in that situation. But if I'm driving and I don't have a spare, and I hear some wobbling on the outside, or I don't have roadside assistance, I'm feeling some kind of way. One, I have a plan for what could possibly happen, which is a mandate for us as brothers and as men, as fathers, is we have to have a contingency plan if life happens. That's why we got spare tires, roadside assistance. But if you don't have that in your financial world, then we find ourselves struggling a little bit more than we have to if and when life happens. And so that's the key in building the right foundation, having the contingency plan in place. No matter what happens, we're being a good place. That's our foundation. Number two, how do we build the right resources for the right times? Short terms, long term, and in between. How do we build wealth accumulation? Now, when people think wealth, they think a whole bunch of money, Wealth to me is really being strategic about how you plan your life and giving yourself every option in life. What I mean by that is, at the end of the day, I kind of get to do what I want to do when I want to do it. Not from an egotistical standpoint, but from a planning standpoint. And that can be sending a kid to college. That can be going back and get a master's or a PhD. That can be opening up the next business. That can be the second or the third home you want to buy abroad. It can be all these things, but the most important thing is that as we're building these plans, we're thinking about where should we be putting money. Now, what buckets do we have available to us? There's annuities, there's 401ks, there's IRAs, there's Roth IRAs, there's brokerage accounts, there's ETFs. I mean, we can go on and on and on. There's the Bitcoin, there's the cryptocurrency, and all those things that are the fun new jazzy trends that are out there right now. Now, I will say one thing about all those trend guys: until your foundation is right, don't you get out there rolling the dice. Don't you be the next guy that's gonna put this down and blow up. You know, don't be that cat. I know guys that went from hero to zero in crypto, Bitcoin, you name it. And I know some guys that knocked the ball off the cover. But they were able to do that, guys, because they had no concern about their foundation. If they lost it, okay. They can let it ride, okay. Either way, their heart wouldn't beat like this every time they turned on the news channel and saw crypto or Bitcoin or whatever the trend was at that time had taken a downfall. I know some guys have done really well on that entry level. You get in when they start, you'll be a rock star. But to play with it in the middle, it's kind of challenging to do that. As long as you got your ducks in a row and your foundation is straight, we're good. So when we're looking at building wealth, and remember, guys, these are very general 60,000 foot view type topics. And during your question time, we can narrow some of those things down, obviously. But I'm giving you the foundation, and I'm thinking now, once I get my foundation, now I want to really determine how do I grow money. And one thing that we have to do is have a debt solution if we have debt. And I consider good debt, bad debt. We know what bad debt is, mainly credit cards and stuff like that, or high interest rate loans, whatever they may be. Anything that you're paying, high interest on, now cars, homes, that's all necessary, which we call good debt, because you got to have that type debt. And then there's business entrepreneurship debt that I deal with a lot of clients because they're building a business or they're taking out loans to grow a business. That makes sense because there's an ROI on that dollar amount, hopefully, if they plan it right. And so how do you really decide retirement-wise, college fund, special needs? If any of you guys have any family members that are in a special needs situation or kids or family members that that's very important. That's a very specialized way of saving and growing money and protecting that particular child. And if anybody has any special needs, family members or kids or anybody, I don't specialize in that totally. I know how to do it, but I have a couple friends because the laws has changed on what assets you want to have available or even in their name. So when the laws change, you got to be careful with that type of stuff. But if you have any needs there, I can definitely help you to the best of my ability. But I would definitely get you guys with someone that really handles that space. That's a very delicate space, by the way. And so we'll look at tax efficient strategies and how to grow money the right way and make sure that we're not putting ourselves in a risk adverse situation where we don't need to put that much risk on the table. So we'll definitely look at that. And the last thing is, guys, really, how do we look at retirement? The third leg to success is strategically planning for retirement right now if you hadn't started. Well, I got a 401k or I got this. You can't live off 401ks anymore. There's too much fluctuation in the market. Your taxes are probably going to go up in the next 15 to 20 years. If you don't know that, so brace yourself. That's the trend anyway. That's the expectation. It may or may not. But as you see, the bracket really goes up and down depending on who's in office. And we know how that pendulum swings from time to time. So how do we look at really strategic retiring, guys? And how do we make sure we can maintain the lifestyle that we want to have during retirement? And that's a really, really big question today because life is fickle. And obviously the longevity of our earning potential has decreased. Normally between 42 and 52 was when you maxed out and made your best money, your most money. That's being extended a little bit now to 55, 56 now, depending on the career and the field that you're in, obviously. And so those are the things that I look at as a team as well. If you're in IT or if you're in finance or you're in the medical arena, an attorney or any professional career, we look at the longevity of your career, your income today, and what the expectation is on that career. So if you're making 200 grand now and you got your next, 10 years will be your biggest years of earning. So I'm looking at you making between 2.4 and about $2.9 million. I treat my clients like athletes. We all get this. If your income is 200 grand and you're going to work 15 in the next 10 years, your contract with me is $2 million. So I got to figure out how to protect $2 million and take 30% of that and figure out how to make that $4 million by the time you get ready to walk away, which means some sacrifice needs to be made. Unless you're just making a whole bunch of money and you ain't got no bills, and that makes it a lot easier for me. But most people that I know typically ain't in that space, but they just got money to throw away. I mean, they may have some cool discretionary income, but they want to make it, beneficial for them. So let me just recap a little bit, and then I'll pause, and then you guys can kind of redirect any questions. One is risk management. How do we protect our dollars? How do we protect our families? How do we look at making sure as we grow that retirement dollars are protected by some type of long-term care strategy? That's one. Two, when, where, and how do we save and grow money? Eradicating debt, making sure we have the right reserves in place, emergency fund, rainy day fund, whatever you want to call it, and making sure we're growing money in the most tax efficient way possible. The third thing is, from a retirement strategy, how much do we want to have? When do we want to walk away? And when do we want to start pulling those dollars? When we start looking at those three tiers, risk, growth, security, those are the areas that we talk about initially. Now, under that, guys, we are looking at college funding, special needs, big events, real estate purchases. I mean, there's a lot of other things in there under those pillars, but those are our three tiers that we start out with looking at. And then the last tier of all of that is really estate planning. Making sure what we have, remember my keyword is legacy, making sure what we have, we're able to pass that through the right channels, and we create those through trust. There's several different trusts out there. Obviously, you got to have a will. And so those are the things that we talk about on the back end to make sure once we've grown these resources and we have these dollars allocated, if the good Lord says something different than what we want and call us home a little sooner, we've put the will in place and we have that trust in place that's going to allow us to miss a whole bunch of tax issues if we have those things channeled right. And so that's part of that's really the last tier in what we do when we sit with clients, depending on what stage they are in life. If you're 60 and talking to me, obviously we're going straight to the estate planning and all that because, we got to make sure that's right. And if you're, 35, 40, we may take these other steps first. So with that being said, I'll take a pause. I think I've been going about 20 minutes now. And Will, you direct me and what you want me to do. I can take a pause and answer some questions now or whatever you guys would like to do at this point.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Right now, we have only one question. But before I ask that question, I need to sit down with you again, brother. We need to go over a few more things in my portfolio.
Because you man, I don't remember that conversation.
No. When we talk, it's usually personal or about golf or something.
Right.
You need to get into the business. The question is, what are your views on uniform transfer to minor accounts versus savings?
Say that again.
What are your views on UTMA or uniform transfer to minor accounts versus savings?
Well, when you say minor accounts, what do they mean exactly? Are they looking at saving for their children? Are they looking at it using some of that from an investment standpoint for their children, or just savings like straight up? But you said minor accounts, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, it's savings for children.
Yeah. So I look at that several ways. That's a good question too. So what is it for? So we're saving for our kids. It's a deeper question. What is it for? And when do I need to access it? Because the time horizon and the need will tell me what area we should look at. You know, if you're saying I want to save for college and my kid is 5, I got a whole bunch of things we can talk about. But if you just want to make sure, hey, you know, when my kids come out of college, I want to be able to buy them their, you know, I don't know, down payment for a home. You have to be very specific with that question, but it's a great question. But the other question that I would ask real quick, time horizon and what's the need?
Okay. Okay. Another question here is, what are the average costs of real estate planning?
For real estate planning?
Yes, sir.
It really depends on when you say real estate planning. Are you looking like those are great questions, but it's hard to be specific unless I know the exact need. But real estate planning, if you're looking to purchase additional properties, you know, as a way to subsidize income long term, which means you want to pass a stream of income and you want to do it through real estate. Once again, if that's the question, then we would go back and really look at where your debt to income ratio looks like for you personally, what level of liquidity that you have available to fund, and how soon are you looking at the ROI on that investment? And once again, what's the need of that investment? Is it a short-term need, or you're looking to say, hey, you know what? I think we're going to do real estate and retire and use real estate as a way to subsidize our retirement dollars for the next, 20 years.
Understood.
So it goes back to the liquidity that you have and what's the ultimate need for it. And more importantly, are you using that or intend to use that for a continuous stream of income?
Got it. What are the average costs of estate planning?
I just did one. It depends on, it obviously depends on what your, wealth is, what do you have? But I would say a good attorney, the one that I use is anywhere from $1,800 to $3,000 to do an initial estate planning deal. And that would include looking at trust, wills. It's kind of all inclusive. So if you say, hey, I want to talk about estate planning, they're going to ask, obviously, what assets do you have? Are they hard assets, or the assets have been transferred to you? On top of that, who is it for? How do you want to shelter it? So really, in estate planning, it can get expensive depending on what you got. Look at it this way: if I'm writing a will for 25 or 30-year-old with no kids but got a great job, that will is going to be pretty easy. But if I'm writing a will for someone that's 60 and worth about 8 million or 10 million, that will is going to be a lot more detailed and cost a heck of a lot more to put in place. So, but the basic average, I would say, for an estate planning to talk to someone to get the ball going, I would say probably about $3,000 with whatever adjustments that may need to be made in the future or updates. Just like any will, you're going to pay for that time if you update something. But I would say about $3,000 to have a really good conversation with a really, really competent attorney.
Understood. That's it for our questions right now, brother. If you have anything more, we'd love to hear. We can put a pin in there. Or...
Yeah. So the only other component that I really wanted to talk about outside of those 3 elements of just financial planning, is when we start thinking about planning, what I encourage people to do to make it a sense of urgency. So everyone that's on the phone now, man, I would tell you to go look at those 3 areas of your life. Make sure you look at your risk portfolio, because that's not the fun part of financial planning. When you talk about dying or leaving money to somebody and all that, that's not the fun part. But I tell you, that is the most factual and the most intense part that any plan should have, because we don't control the next breath out of our bodies as we're having this conversation. And the tough thing as Black men, if we kill over next Thursday, next week, 2 years from now, what does your legacy look like? And that's what I challenge us to think about, because we can have all the intention in the world to make that, make this 300,000 for the next 10 years, whatever we're going to make. And, but that's just not promised to us. I mean, we've experienced 2020, 2021, and all the craziness and the madness that this world has had. And if we're not foundationally sound, I mean, we're only a banana peel slip away. And so I would encourage you guys to review your risk portfolios. making sure your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed, and make sure if you have any family issues, and I'm just going to keep it 100 for a second, any family issues, make sure you get everything in writing. Get a will in place. I got too many clients that I've gotten on the back end and they're in probate. I mean, the person is dead and they fight, you know, and I know all y'all have those stories and you know, I ain't the only one in my family. I know that I've had them situations. So please take it upon yourself. Get these things in writing by a competent attorney that can put the things in place that you want to see happen versus having family members or siblings or whatever. I got some people in Arkansas fighting over land right now. I mean, in court. I mean, it's crazy. And I don't want to see any of us, men of achievement, not being prepared for the things we don't control. So please, if nothing else comes from this conversation today, make sure your money's protected, your risk is protected the right way, you're saving tax efficiently, and most importantly, you have it in writing. Not this I told you, or she know, I told her, or Big Mama said, and all that. We're going to leave all that out there somewhere else. We're going to get this thing legitimate, and we're going to get this thing done the right way, because, man, that's going to be a blessing to your siblings, I mean, to your kids and to your legacy. It's bad enough that we leave sometime without a lot, but heaven forbid we leave with a little something, and people got to go through hell to figure out who's going to get what. And now the whole process of what you wanted to create is diminished because we didn't take 5 hours to get with some attorneys or a financial advisor, whoever, and sit down and map that thing out. Because when it's all said and done, you don't get to raise your hand, you know, after that last breath, that, hold on, this is what I meant to do. This is what I meant. We just don't get that opportunity, guys. So please, 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 make sure you get with someone that's able to make sure your family, your wife, your kids, grandkids, whoever it is, are positioned the way you would want to see them if you were still here.
That's good stuff, brother. That's real good stuff. Would there be any other questions? We've got about 25 minutes left. Question here just came in. When would be a good time, or when should we set up a will?
A will?
Yes.
Probably everybody on this phone, right? Right now, I mean, if you have anything, what I mean by that, I don't mean you have to have a lot of stuff. It's not about having a lot of assets. It's about if you have something that's meaningful and has value to it, how do I make sure that value is transferred in the hands of who I want it to go to with the least amount of restraint? Simple as that. It ain't got to be a lot, but whatever I have, I want to make sure that is transferred to the person that I want to have it with the least amount of resistance. So that's the answer to that question. If you got anything, make sure it's documented. And the key to that is, brothers, even if you get a very generic will, you know, if we got somebody on the line now that's 30, just starting out at a new gig, I don't have a whole bunch right now, but he planning on blowing up. But he got a 401k, or he got some at, you know, at a job. Go ahead and get that in writing with the, because then it's going to cost you $200 with an attorney to do that. But now you get married. Now you got a house. Now you got a kid. That same attorney now just can update that, and it costs you less money because you're already a client and you're just adding to it now. So it's much more cost effective to do it then than all of a sudden have all this stuff that take her, you know, billing about an hour to figure it all out. So for guys who feel they may not have a lot, get the will in place. It's little. For guys who got a lot, go ahead and bite that bullet and go ahead and walk into the office and pay that money up front, because on the back end, it's going to save you a hell of a lot more.
Understood. Hey, let me make a point of reference here. We've got not only brothers on the call, we've got family on the call. We've got some pretty girls that wear pearls. We've got some devastating divas on this call as well.
Okay. Okay. All right. I didn't know that. That's why I apologize. I didn't know. But what I say apply to everybody. I just didn't acknowledge the ladies. Ladies, my apologies. I don't want no smoke.
Right. Hey, which is better?
We have Kamala on the pod too.
Oh, thanks, Doc. Hey, Sean, the other question comes in is which is better, a will or a trust, and what's the difference?
Oh, well, a will just really obviously it's your will, it's your desire. It orchestrates where your resources go. It allows it to be dictated without question, your desires, your last wishes, all that good stuff. Now, a trust is where we would store all of our assets, house, cars, boats, money, wills, whatever it is. And a trust serves like a big old barn. I'm just allowed to put anything in that, but a trust doesn't always have to be, say, in Sean Washington's name. And so it allows me to pass certain things through certain avenues, and it's more tax efficient just depending on how I have that trust set up. So a will just simply says, I died, I want Brother Beckmill to get my house, my car, my boat, my this, my that. A trust says all these assets are protected and no one can necessarily come in and take those things from me if I'm sued or if I find myself in a legal battle of some sort. Whoever the executive or the executor of that trust, they get to kind of make those different type decisions. So it's kind of a shelter of assets that allows you to pass it on sometimes, depending on the situation, in a more tax efficient manner. A will doesn't really have anything to do with taxes. It's just, this is where I want it to go. This is going to take care of it. Here's the executor of the will. I'm going to allow, will to determine A, B, and C. So one is a housing unit for all your stuff. The will dictates where things go if something were to happen.
Okay. I see a couple more's coming in actually. Excuse me. Can you speak to credit building for young adults from the perspective of parents?
Credit building?
Yes.
Well, credit is really not my space. I would probably direct you to a credit person. I really don't know a lot about building credit.
Okay.
I really don't, outside what everybody else probably knows,
pay your bills on time.
Yeah. Yeah. Pay your bills on time. Make sure you get a $5,000 credit card. You don't spend $4,999.
Right. What about someone fresh to the market and you want to help them, maybe a child or something, you want to help them build wealth and buying power by their 30s?
I'm sorry, you broke up on me, Will.
What about someone fresh to the market or fresh to the work world and you want to help them build wealth from a parental perspective? You want to help them build wealth and buying power by their 30s.
So I think I heard, I'm sorry, I'm sitting in the car. How do I help someone just starting out? Someone started out, how do they build wealth just starting out as a young adult or, young couple or whatever?
Correct.
Okay. The biggest thing to do there really, like I said, and a lot of that depends on their income, what's their tax bracket. Because if they're a young person starting out making, $200K, well, we're going to do more tax efficient planning for that person than someone that's making, $100K, early on. Because the difference now is that person that's making 200, they can't do a Roth IRA, right? Because their income is too high. But the person that's making 100 can do a Roth IRA. They may both be 25, but that person that's making 2 won't get that benefit just because of income, IRS restrictions. So it really depends on the income that person is making to determine what's best. Like, once again, like I said, the planning we do is very specific and it's really to the individual. It's you can't do generic. Unfortunately, some people do cookie cutters and that don't work well. Everything that I do on my team, it's all individualized. So to answer that question, to be fair, it really depends on what their income is to say what's best, because a Roth would be best for somebody making less than 144K now. And then there's permanent planning and things like that. So, but the main thing they can do is to make sure they maintain a low debt situation. Now, you want people to learn how to build wealth at a young age, keep your debt down. Because most people come out of school, unfortunately these days, with a lot of student loans, and they get out and they make good money and they
spending like they make good money, which means their debt is getting higher. So if you really want to coach someone early on how to be successful and grow wealth, is maintain low levels of debt, except for good debt, unless you're buying property and real estate, and making sure you have a reserve. Teach them how to save. Make sure they have 3 to 6 months of reserve. Teach them the mentality of saving for themselves first, and then allow them to then take those resources, not their savings, but now use the savings money that they already pushed aside, reallocate those dollars to an investment strategy. So I would tell them to maintain debt. I would tell them to make sure they save at least 3 to 6 months. Stop saving that money. Start using that money for an investment strategy. Because now if life happens at a young age, they got a good savings, so they're not stressed in case they lose that job, or if they want to leave a job and go to another one. And to make sure then they can start saving and investing with peace. The worst investor is one that don't have no savings, because anytime something happens in the account, hey Sean, hey man, what you think? I'm like, hey man, I just talked to you last Thursday. I thought the same thing then. I think now. But if you don't have anything saved, you're on pins and needles all the time.
Oh yeah.
So
oh yeah.
I would tell them to be debt conscious, get a good emergency fund, and then start investing.
All right. I want to backtrack just a little bit. I see your questions coming in, you all. I want to backtrack just a little bit. And where did it go? All right, here it is. I see something from a very good attorney and a judge in here that I know personally. Back to wills and trusts. This person says also you need to also pay attention to, depending on the state and the different probate laws regarding wills and trusts.
Yep. That's why you got to get a good attorney. That's why
correct.
you get a good. They'll take care of all of that.
And if you need a good attorney and you're on this call me later. I'll refer you to one that's on the call. Someone asked, what if you're already retired? Now what? What can they do to maximize what they have in their portfolio already? Would it be good to have a second opinion, or how should they go about that?
Say that one time for me again, Will. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. If someone's already retired and they already have a portfolio, would it be good to have a second opinion, or is there a strategy that they might, want to do to maximize more than what they have?
Yeah. If you've already retired, fully retired, which means you have no other income, you shut it down for real. Well, then I think you should always probably get a second opinion. Most of my clients, I encourage, I love the fact that very few will go out and say, hey, Sean, I'm going to talk to somebody else. But I encourage that because it keeps me sharp. It's not going to change what I think if I think we have the best plan in place. But if you have retired and if you're not working with someone closely, then I would. But if you got someone you like and it's working out and your returns are good and everything's okay, maintain the relationship. But I don't think it ever hurts just to have someone else look at it, because if I'm doing my job, it's not going to make a difference who look at it as far as I'm concerned. They just going to amen me and send them back to me.
My man.
It doesn't bother me if you go talk to somebody else. I wouldn't take it personal.
Okay. Man, I love that you all are finding these questions in here. I really do. I'm learning, as well as you all, hopefully anyway. Backing up again, when I asked that question about speaking to young adults fresh to the market and wanting to build wealth by their 30s, the reason that was brought up is because as a young minority physicians come out of training, some are blindsided by the acute spike in wealth and don't have any guidance, they don't have low debt. They have, accumulated $100,000 or $200,000 in debt coming out of residency, so.
Oh yeah. So, but here's the deal. You're talking about med students or pre-med?
Correct.
Yeah. So we have a plan for that, and I'm not plugging me on this space. I'm just saying Northwestern Mutual probably works best in that field more than any other firm in the country, period, when it comes to medical individuals. So I work with a lot of guys out of Xavier, not a lot, but out of pharmacy school. And so there are very strategic ways to work with, pre-med and especially those that are in residency. You're not making a lot of money. I mean, you don't make that till you come out, and then you got maybe a year or two after that. But there are very strategic plans out there that we work with med students. I mean, those that are in residency and fellowships, wherever they are in that phase, to help them start articulating strategies to put those things in place. Because when they come out the first couple of years, they make 50, 80, maybe 110. But that third, fourth year, they're at the 275, depending on what field they're in or if they're in a specialized field. I mean, they jump up pretty quick. And so what we do, because there are so many different loans in which they can start paying that money back. I mean, everybody knows income-based loans and all that kind of stuff. It depends on where they are and what field they're in and what their earning potential is, that if we get them early enough, we can start kind of putting those loans in perspective in regards to the best way to start to repay those loans, if that's something they want to look at up front. But that just takes planning and knowing where they are, knowing they're going to be in a special field, knowing if they're considering going into their own practice versus going to a hospital or, another doctor's office. But we can work with individuals on the best way to kind of look at that debt from that perspective.
All right. One other question here. What are your thoughts on young adults purchasing a condo or home versus continuing to rent?
Like I said, that's a 60,000 foot view question. But if like I said, it really depends on the strength of the person. It really depends on their long-term goals, short-term and long-term goals. It depends on their makeup, or they consider getting married soon. I mean, it's so, I hate to keep saying this, but it's so many factors when you ask that question. It's hard to answer the question.
Understood.
Because there is no right answer. It really depends on the person. But just from a theory perspective, I would say if your savings is good and your debt ratio is good, I would say purchasing a home, if they're financially in a good position to do that, always would serve as a better way to start having ownership, having equity in something, something that's appreciating, that has value to it, versus obviously renting. But however, it has to be the right time. I've seen people get in homes and they become home poor because they want to have a home, but they're not financially in a place to be a home owner, if that makes sense. I can call the guy to come fix the plumbing if something happened in my rent house or my apartment. I'm the person I'm calling if I'm in my home and something goes wrong with my plumbing and my other stuff. So I have to see and be cognizant or confident that they're physically able to be a homeowner, not to just own a home. It's a big difference.
Right. I can speak to that myself. Sean, you and I have had this conversation several times. We've known each other for years. Being in my young 20s, getting out of school, moving out here into my early 30s, I was still in an apartment. And I'm watching friends buy homes, and they're telling me, man, you're spending $1,100 or $1,200 on rent. You need to be putting that into a home. I'm like, yeah, but if my refrigerator breaks right now, I call that front office. You got to call Sears and buy a new one. You know.
And the other piece of that too, Will, guys, I mean, I think it's right to purchase a home when you're financially able, feasible, and to be a homeowner. But here's the deal. Then you find so many people go in debt. Because when you buy that home, unfortunately, wisdom doesn't say, now old school, our parents grew up, it's like a good time. This may be funny to you guys, but they say, we ain't got no credit. A good time, they have no credit. Everything they did, they paid for with cash. So what I've seen over the last 17, 18 years is that people buy these homes and then they feel that they got to furnish everything right now. So then they find themselves in $25,000, $35,000, $40,000 of debt because they're trying to furnish the whole home and get to upgrade this and to upgrade that. So it just has to be for a young person, it needs to be wisdom articulated in, I'm purchasing this not so I can say I have a house, but because I'm looking at it as an investment. And you don't have to furnish every room the day you buy the house. So that's why educated folk, need to be talking to those great young, entrepreneurs or business owners or workers or whatever, to not get into that house poor situation to keep up with the girlfriend or the friend or the Joneses, so to speak, because that's where they are.
Oh, yeah.
That's what they're doing.
I like what you just said, brother. The educated folk, not necessarily school wise, but
Yeah.
mental wise, we need to pass that information down to our younger, not even just our children, but nieces, nephews,
Right.
cousins, friends, neighbors, dogs' previous owners,
Right.
things like that. My wife and I try to do our best with our children doing that same thing, learning from you, my man.
Yeah. Well, the last thing on that homeowner deal too, because I have a lot of clients and I got a lot of friends that are realtors, and they'll send, they'll send their client to me, just for the financial planning piece. And during our conversation, I would just, I would tell them, I don't think you're able. I mean, you're paying, $1,800, $1,900 of rent now, but the mortgage is going to be $2,600 a month, and that's an $800 difference, and everything else is going to go up 20%, right?
Yes.
So if you've never done that, I would tell them, you know what, wait 6 months. Instead of paying $1,800 a month for rent, see if you can put $3,000 away for 6 months now, see what that feels like. Do that first. Now, if you can do that 6 months comfortably, okay, you may be in a position now to go and buy that home. But if you got $1,800 all of a sudden, that $2,900, $2,700 hurting every time you pay it, you might ought to build that muscle up first where that's comfortable and you got savings and things like that. If you lose your job, you're still okay. So it's just putting that foundation in place, guys, that I started this conversation with an hour ago. Build that foundation, and these other decisions are easy. They're easy to make because there's no pressure in case something happens.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Sean. What I hear from you in that last note, what I hear from you is discipline. You're disciplined.
It's that S word that we don't like, called sacrifice. We got to do that every once in a while. That's a curse word to some people. Sacrifice.
Go ahead and buy those shoes. No, maybe you should. Okay, you all. We're down to 5 minutes left, and trying to stay true to my word. I'd like to keep us within an hour. If there are any further questions, by all means, fire them away while we've got a few minutes left.
Well, I will say this while you're getting any more questions. So, for everybody that's on the line, I appreciate your time. And normally Will can attest. Normally, you wouldn't catch me, with my golf gear on and my nonprofit information on. I'm not publicizing Golf 316, but I am going to send the brothers and the sisters a flyer for our golf tournament. But I just left there today. We have our program on Sundays, which Will is aware of. His daughter was one of our stellar participants years ago. And so that's why I'm in this attire. So forgive me for that. Just leaving Topgolf, and I want to make sure that I was on time. And so forgive my gear.
Sean has two forms of dress. One is golf gear, and the other is custom-made Armani suits. Okay. All right. Well, I think that's about it. I didn't see any other questions come through. I want to take this opportunity, Sean, to thank you from my heart, from not just a friend aspect, as a brother aspect. I love you as man, one of my own. Everyone, we thank you for your time and your participation. Hang on, am I muted? No.
No, I hear you.
No. Okay, someone said I was muted in here. I want to everyone on the call. Thank you for your time and your participation. We've got one more coming up actually next week. We had to push it to the beginning of May because we're going to have two. Next week will be topic on one that Black people really don't like to talk about, and it's mental health awareness. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so I encourage you to come back and visit us again on next week. I'll get the flyer out as quickly as possible. And then at the, it will be covered by not just a layperson, but someone actually in the field of mental health. Dr. Janice Moody, what did she do? Let's see, she is a clinical psychologist. She's also a professor of psychology at Texas Southern University down in Houston. So I see it from, there's more things coming in here. Okay, no other questions. The end of the month in May, I think it's May 29th, if I'm not mistaken. May is still also Better Hearing and Speech Month. So we'll have some 3 Black ladies they're all originally from Tulsa, but they're in Phoenix right now. Not Phoenix, they're in Arizona, I think Tucson. They're speech pathologists. They'll go through better hearing and speech from infant all the way through geriatric ages. So we encourage you to come back and check us out again on next month. Any further questions? I see things coming in. No questions. I love you all. Thank you for participating. We'll see you again next week. Invite someone out. Invite a friend. Tell a friend. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Sean.